Hello and welcome back to Wild Survival 101. So today I'm going to talk about how to build a wilderness shelter. So just imagine the temperature's dropping fast, the wind's picking up, and you can hear thunder in the distance. You'd probably gather from that in the next few hours, exposure to the elements could become your deadliest enemy, unless you can find a suitable place to shelter, or if you don't have a tent, you might have to build one in the woods. So sometimes your expensive gear won't save you. Smartphone is useless, so you might not be able to find somebody to come and help you. So there's only one thing really standing between you and suffering from hypothermia and your knowledge now to build a proper survival shelter. So I promised in the last video about the 5 most important survival skills. So today we're going to take a deeper dive into building a survival shelter. For those specifically interested in winter survival, you probably look back on this site and you'll see that I did a short video on building a quinzee, which is a snow cave or a snow shelter. I live in the Northwest Territories of Canada. We have snow on the ground for 6 months of the year, so I have plenty of time to practice those. But you're kind of a bit limited to a snow shelter here. So in other parts of the world, where the climate's a bit more gentle, you will rely on what's around you, and that's usually if you're in a wood, you're looking to what's available on the trees, branches fallen, tree trunks, that sort of thing, to build a survival shelter, so a temporary place to keep you out of the elements. So let's talk first of all about the 4 critical factors that determine survival shelter building success. So sometimes it's where people can go wrong. So the perfect shelter in the wrong location can be, well, deadly, really. So here's what you need to consider. So sometimes people will build a shelter, might be on just the downside of a slope, but if it rained heavily, water would rush down the slope and probably might half carry away your survival shelter. So think about building it on high ground to avoid water collection. Think about natural windbreaks as well. That will help protect your shelter too. And make sure it's a safe distance from dead trees. So if you're building it under a tree or using part of the tree to construct your shelter, make sure you have a good look up and look at the branches as well, and see that none of them are about to come down on you in the middle of the night, destroy your shelter as well. And make the shelter also close enough to resources, like water and firewood as well. If possible, make it visible to rescuers, but hidden from predators. A survival shelter can blend in pretty well with the background. Just a quick point from me about my own experience, really. During some of my wilderness training, we did a spell. One of the activities we did was to build an emergency shelter. We used branches and fir tree boughs as well. We didn't just learn the theory, we had an instructor there, and we had to build it, and he watched over us as well, and we had to sleep in it overnight. It's not quite like spending a night in a shelter that you built yourself to teach you what works and what doesn't. So you can't, if you're going to know you're going to sleep in it at night, you're not going to do it, with just half an effort. You're going to make sure it's right first time. So I know one of my fellow students there learned this the hard way when the shelter he built partially collapsed during the night. So that was a powerful lesson for him. And we had a look at it as well. We did a kind of post-mortem on his shelter, and he learned from that just what he could have done right the next time. There's different types of shelters. There's the lean-to ones where you use part of a tree. You can get a decent-sized branch, lean it against a fallen part of a tree, prop it up there, and you can use other branches as well that come down to and then cover them with boughs as well. Another type of shelter as well, and there's many different ones I've seen as well. You can, if you have a tarp, you can get some frame, you can suspend it from a branch above and pin the sides of the tarp to the ground. So it could be open at one side, but in front of it as well, you would build a log fire, and that radiant heat would come into your shelter as well. That's a minimal amount of branches and fallen debris that you would need to construct the shelter with. I've seen other ones where you just been a fallen tree and there's been a big root sticking up, still packed with soil. That makes a good reflector of heat as well. If you can build a log fire in front of that as well, and maybe build a platform on which to sleep as well. So there's many different types of different shelters that you can do. You know, some of them are shown here on the side as well. These are just some ideas you can have, and I think it's better than me trying to describe them all. Is just get an idea, get a much better idea just by looking at them. And because they're quite simple to build, they just need some practice, and you can just get a really good idea just looking at them. Keep that picture in your mind because they're not complicated, and go out and try them as well. There's another one I remember building in a group as well called Debris Hut. And that uses materials from the forest floor. So I think it's about 10 of us in the group. So what we did, we all laid down on the forest floor in a circle. And that gave us the area of the floor that we all needed to. We didn't spend the night in there, but you know, if we needed to, it would have ensured that we had enough room for all of us. So all our feet were pointing into the middle of the circle. And you could have built a small fire there, and that would have kept your feet warm as well. And then on the outside, we got some long branches and put them up. So it was a bit like a teepee, really, made from branches. So that was sloping out like that, like a pyramid. And then when we got that, we covered it with branches as well. And then finally, we got a lot of debris from the forest floor, bunches of leaves, and put those on as well. And you can also, there's a lot of moss around, you can put that on as well. So only hoping that it doesn't rain, because water will come in. You won't be able to seal it perfectly, but you know, you have to do the best you can with what you've got and where you are. Here's a good tip for you as well. Your shelter is only as good as its materials. So kind of here's a hierarchy of natural building materials, really. So for structural materials, you want strong branches for the framework. I talked about that big debris hut for 10 people. And then flexible saplings, you might be able to weave those into the ribbing of the branches as well to give more support and structure to take what you're going to put on top in the way of final covering. So vines or inner bark for cordage as well. You can be used as certain trees that you can strip off bark, or certain plants that you can strip off the stalks of the plants and weave them together, and that makes quite good cordage as well. But if you're well prepared for the survival, you'll have that sort of thing with you. You'll have some paracord with you that you can use to perhaps tie the top of the shelter together with as well. For insulation materials, dry leaves, pine needles and grass and small branches are also good. And then for waterproofing, large leaves, sheets of bark, but you know, to really be careful there not to kill the tree by taking too much bark from it. So, you know, if you need to take bark from the trees, maybe spread it around. And also, there's also bark on fallen branches as well. So it's probably best to go to them first. Pine boughs and also ferns might be available as well. So when you're building the shelter, there's a few knots that you might help you with. So you might you hopefully have some paracord as well with you. So I've got 3 good knots you can use, and there are videos online that will take you through. You know, somebody will show you a couple of different coloured ropes and how to do these knots. But a clove hitch is a good one. So that securely attaches a rope to a post or a branch, and that's quite easy to tie as well. Square lash is another good one. So you can use that to bind 2 pieces of wood together, especially if they're, you know, like this, and you can wrap the cord around each cross piece. And then the other one is a bowline, and that's a really good knot that won't slip as well. That's quite fairly easy to tie too. I'll just talk about some common mistakes now that I've seen people make or heard about them. So building it too big. So if only you were going into it, you know, building it too big just wastes energy, and it's harder to heat as well and keep warm inside. And also ignoring the wind direction. You know, if the wind might change in the night, that's unfortunate. I don't know what you can do about to predict that unless you've got a really good grasp of weather patterns. It might start blowing directly into your shelter. So sometimes having a door as well. The ones I've built before, they were like triangular shape, tapering down towards where your feet would be, but open at the front. Or sometimes you can build some sort of door to go there as well, but that's a lot more work too. Don't forget about drainage and test the structure as well. How do you test the structure? Well, don't be too harsh, but you can probably get hold of the top of it and give it a bit of a shake and get an idea that it's fairly stand up. And then using wet materials as well. Could be dripping on you during the night, which could make things very uncomfortable. Seasonal adaptations. Let's talk about some crucial shelter building strategies that you might need to change with the seasons. So in summer, there's usually plenty that nature gives you to work with. The forest floor is your building supply store. So there's usually plenty of thick leaves for insulation. They're probably left over from the previous fall, but they could still be there. Abundant green boughs for waterproofing. They're fresh from the spring. And flexible green branches for construction as well, that you can bend into shape where required and then tie into the right location in the shelter. And then tall grass and ferns for bedding. Now in winter, that's an entirely different challenge. Your approach to shelter building must change dramatically. You're dealing with snow-covered or frozen materials, limited natural insulation, and the need for more substantial structures. The wind could be stronger in the winter as well. And then there's much higher stakes if you make mistakes due to the high ambient temperature. Here's a pro tip that could save your life: the rule of 3 W's I might have mentioned before. So the weather, protection from the elements, warmth, heat retention, and safety from predators. So remember, in conclusion, remember your shelter is your first line of defense against the elements. So practice these techniques. You can practice them in the backyard of your home if you can. Don't forget to check out my winter shelter and quinzee building video. I give a brief outline there how to build a shelter as well, and a few tips as well. So thanks for watching this video again. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button below, and drop a comment below if you've got some further questions or a specific shelter you'd like to learn more about. So your feedback helps me create the content that you'd like to see most. Till next time, in the wilderness, your shelter is your sanctuary. Stay safe and keep learning. All the best. Bye.